DJ Moore. How do you like it? Gregory doesn't like it. DJ Moore. How is everybody doing today? It's a Saturday. I'm by myself. Amanda is away, and we're a little late than we wanted to be on this one, but we're here. Well, I'm here, and I'm going to take you through this week and hopefully give you some advice on what you need in order to defeat your matchup, unless you are Gregory, in which case all of this is a lie, and you don't have to believe any of it. So let's get into it. We are now in week 3, which means last week we had week 2. Some crazy upsets in that. I feel bad for Brian. Sorry, Brian. Brian had me beat by over 40 points going into the Monday night game where I had Aaron Jones and my tight end, Tanyan, that still needed to play. And Aaron Jones ended up putting up like 40-some points, and Tanyan got 14, and everything worked out. We'll talk about that one later. But yeah, sorry about that. But week 2 peaks of the week. Who did exceptionally well, and who kind of fell into the valleys. So first off, top score of week 2 once again goes to the Super Sharknado. The storm is boiling out there. It is William. He put up 170.4. That's back-to-back top scores for him. He's actually got 322 points, almost 323 points on the season so far. He is crushing everybody. As for the bottom score, the rookies, Sherry and Stu, they only put up 102 points, 102.66. Interesting thing about that last week, nobody put up a sub 100 score. Everybody had over 100, as Sherry and Stu had the lowest. And actually, the league average was 129 points last week, 129. That's a little bit higher than the classic 125, which Amanda and I, we're always talking about, what's the score you need to be putting up each week in order to have a fighting chance. And we kind of both agree, if you're in that 125 range, you've got a fighting chance each and every week in order to win. And our league average last week was 129. There were actually, though, 3 teams who put up a score over that 125, that threshold margin, and they still lost. So there are some teams out there that are, if you've got a player on your team that you're like, maybe we'll put up 8 points, 10 points, I don't know, but maybe they're going to put up 30. Yeah, you might need one of those players. You might need someone to really swing for the fences, because even if you're putting up 125, you could still lose. On the other hand, there were 2 teams last week that had scores that were sub 125, and they still won. So you can get lucky some weeks, you can get unlucky other weeks, and it happens. As for the players that did great, best player last week, Derrick Henry. Oh my goodness, I had him last year. Great player. I believe Williams got him this year. That's why Williams clearly dominating in this league. Derrick Henry is a stud. Play him every week. Man's not going to get injured. He's just going to beat people into the ground. Like, that's a world breaker right there. Worst players, there were a bunch last week, and it's hard to just choose I got the worst numbers, because you'll see why in a second. But here are a bunch of players that scored less than 3 points. And I'm talking about like wideouts, running backs, defenses. All of these scored under 3 points. We have Hilaire, top tier running back, under 3 points. AB scored under 3 points. Jarvis Landry, under 3 points. Tyler Higbee, under 3 points. The Steelers' defense, under 3 points. And Miami's kicker, Sanders. They got so blown out by the Buffalo Bills last week, he scored 0 points. He could not attempt a field goal, and he didn't get a chance to attempt an extra point in that game, which really ended up hurting Sherry and Stu. If they had a kicker that would have put up like 12 to 13 points, they may have had a chance of beating Amanda in that matchup. So really just an unfortunate thing. We often say like kickers don't matter, but when your kicker's putting up 0, you need to find a new kicker. You need to find someone that's going to put up something each week. And that's a real good question about kickers that can come up. Like, what kind of kicker am I looking for? Am I looking for a kicker that's playing behind Tom Brady, where I'm just going to have like 5 to 7 points each week because we're just putting up extra point after extra point after extra point? The offense is so efficient that I don't have to boot a 55-yard field goal to win a game. Or are you looking for a kicker that can maybe score a little bit higher, maybe reach to that like 9 to 14 range, but you're kind of banking on that offense being able to kind of, flutter out. Those are a little bit more varied on the kickers there. But, depending on your matchup and what you're looking at, that might be something to consider. So those are the peaks of the weeks and the valleys for all those terrible players. And there were a lot of them. I don't know how they made him into your lineup. That's just crazy. Some other things that are going on in the league here. Since we are now in the third week, things are starting to get heated. We've got two 2-0 teams, William and Uncle Chris, the walking wounded. They're both 2-0. Not surprising on Uncle Chris. He's always putting up good regular seasons. We've got two 0-2 teams. That is Nick. All other teams are trash, including Nick. And our very own commissioner, Pepperoni and Sausage. That's Greg Luch. Both of those two are over 0-2. Everybody else, we're all 1-1. So this league is very much up for grabs. And if you actually take a look back at prior league seasons, when we were in this kind of a 12-person league, and how many wins do you need to make playoffs? It's actually not that many. Depending on how the season goes, and if we have, one team that just dominates, they just have a ton of wins, or if we have a tighter league, you might need a kind of varying number of wins to actually have a chance of making playoffs. But in general, it can go between 5 and 7. Those are like the minimum thresholds you need. If there is a team, like let's say William goes 11-0 on the season, then everybody else is going to have a bunch of losses. There's going to be more of a spread in terms of what the team records are. And as such, you could squeak into a playoff spot at 5 and 6. This is actually what Jenna did back in 2016. She ended up winning her first week of the playoffs, and then the second week she beat Gregory. He put up terrible scores that year, despite being a 10-1 regular season record, and she won a championship. So with a 5 and 6 record, she swept in, won a championship. Nick did this too, but in a different league format, so we're gonna ignore that. Most years, if you can get to 6 wins, so 6 and 5, you've got a good chance of making playoffs. In both the 5 and 6 and the 6 and 5 setups, though, you're going to probably have a tiebreaker in there. So you need points. You need to be scoring points. And if you realize that at the end of the season, you're looking at those kind of like, oh, I'm a little behind in the points and I'm just going to barely make this tiebreaker, you need to start playing, rock star players that are just going to go out there and put up 30-point games because you are desperate to make playoffs. That's what this is all about. But if you have a 7-4 record, then you're in. This is what happened last year. Last year, 5 teams were 7-4. 5 teams were 7-4. The first place team had a better record and they made it. But everybody other than Uncle Chris, who was 9-2, was 7-4. And that really mattered because that point break right there, that tiebreaker, Amanda won that. She got a bye in the first week of the playoffs, and then she was able to run the table and win her championship. This year, that bye actually is going to get you out of 2 weeks because remember, playoffs are 2 weeks aggregate on each one. So really, 7 wins, that's pretty much a guarantee you're in, but you need to be trying to seed yourself as high as possible to try to get one of those buys for the first and second seeds there. So that's just an important thing. We're still early in the season. There is still a ton of time left, even for Nick and Gregory. They're 0-2. If they're playing waiver wires, which there's a lot of waiver wiring going on right now, they could run the next 4 games. They could run the next 5 games and go 5-2. And they've already got a shot then at making playoffs. So keep that in mind. This league is wide open right now. Make sure you're keeping track of your team. Nobody's out of it yet. It's going to get wild. Okay? Now, in terms of waiver wires and what you should be thinking about there. You should always be checking waivers on Tuesday and setting those up. The way ESPN runs them, it happens between Tuesday and Wednesday morning. And if you're not running those over that night, then you're missing out. If you lost in the previous week and based on your record, you'll have a first pick opportunity. So Gregory in this past week, he had the first pick and he actually prevented both Amanda and myself from getting the players we were looking for in that waiver wire pickups. So Gregory stopped Amanda ended up stopping me, ended up getting someone down the list and whatnot. But it's very important because if you miss that waiver wire pickup, then it's just up for grabs. The next day, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, it's just people clicking, add from free agency. And then it's just, pick whoever you want. So someone like William, who's in first place, can just start gobbling up players again. So make sure you're checking the waivers for players that are out there. What does your team need? And even if you're thinking, hey, my team is locked right now, like I've got a great lineup, look at your bench. You never know when a player is going to get injured in the NFL. CMC. Ooh, that might have hit home. Sorry. CMC got injured on the Thursday night game, and that is going to hurt Brian a lot. He only put up 6 points that game. We're going to see what happens there. But you never know whenever your stud is going to get injured. You need to have someone on the bench waiting to jump in the next week so that you can play them and keep your team rolling. So make sure you're checking those waivers out. Some other things to be looking at are the trades. An interesting little factoid about trades. I've been trying, as every podcast, to desperately get Darren Waller off of Brian. And last week we were playing each other, and I actually asked Brian, like, hey, we could trade Darren Waller this week, or we can do it later after the game, whatever. But if I would have traded my tight end to him, Tanyan from Green Bay, and he would have given me Darren Waller, and I would have played Darren Waller, and he would have played the tight end I gave him instead, because Brian doesn't play Raiders, then I would have lost out on 3 points, and Brian would have gained 9, and Brian would have beat me. So even if you're playing that person this week, maybe the trade's going to go into your favor. It's not a bad thing to think about. And in terms of the trading world, we have this. I sent out an email to everybody last week, or maybe as early this week. This is our trade mapper, because I don't think ESPN does a good job with it, and IBM Watson sometimes doesn't do what you want. But all of our 12 teams are here in no real order. I just kind of like put them down the line. But you can put here in these 3 boxes players you're willing to trade away and what you're looking for. So we see William is looking for a running back. You can see I'm looking for a tight end and a running back. And Gregory's looking for a running back. And here are players that I'm willing to give away. Here's players that Gregory's willing to give away. William would just like you to give him a running back. But you can pretty much put whoever you want there. So let's say Uncle Chris is looking for a wide receiver. And he has, I don't even know who Uncle Chris has here. So we'll just put Mahomes, right? He's a quarterback. Boop. Hey, look at that. Now, just on the color blue, we can see that, Mahomes is the quarterback. I can put the team in too, Kansas City, just so people can see that on a quick glance. And it just gives you one good kind of little place on saying, like, what's out there? What are people willing to give away? What are people willing to keep? So make sure you're taking a look at this. If you're like, hey, I deleted your email because emails are dumb, then just let me know. I'll re-email this out to you, and you should all have edit access. So if you're struggling with that, just give me a contact, and I'll help you out there. Now, one other thing in the world of waivers and whatnot, he's been picked up, people. He has been picked up. Who is he? Why, Josh Gordon has been reinstated by NFL, and he's already in our league. Gregory, in a desperation attempt, has picked up Josh Gordon. We're going to see what happens there. We'll see if Josh Gordon comes back with an Antonio Brown situation. And don't forget, it's not this week, it's not next week, it's not the following, but starting week 6, bye weeks are coming, people. Start checking your team, start checking what your bye week situations are going to be, and maybe you trade away a great player for another great player because you've dodged that bye week there. Okay? So that's this week. That's just some information to help you out there. Until next time, adios. Take it easy. This is Dub Street.